welcome back to the GLP Report podcast. On this episode, part 3 of our conversation with Discoveryland lead Imagineer Tim Delaney. And this time around, it's all about the Nautilus walkthrough attraction. Plenty of stories and plenty of anecdotes about this wonderful attraction. We'll also talk a little bit about Star Tours and his more recent projects, Paradise Pier at Disney California Adventure, plus stay till the end for one last Space Mountain anecdote. But we start right now with the Nautilus.
The Nautilus is one of the attractions that spanned, with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, has spanned from many different Disney theme parks, from Walt Disney World to Tokyo to Paris. I was just wondering, how did that decision to bring the Nautilus to Paris come about, and how did you decide on the walkthrough attraction? How did it arrive in Paris?
Well, again, you're when you think about the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, I mean, you have to remember, when you're dealing with Imagineering, you're dealing with a bunch of super duper Disney freaks, and so if there's a chance to build a Nautilus submarine, we're going to do it, you know. So there was always a guy who was hanging around. You know, he occasionally would work at Imagineering, and he'd be in the model shop, and I think you put it in those notes about that. His name is Tom Sherman, and Tom Sherman was a guy who, never married and kind of a loner and but an interesting guy, really interesting guy. But when he first saw the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea movie, it just captured him, and he kept this as a kind of big time theme throughout his whole life, his entire life. You know, he's kind of amazing. You know, he would build Nautilus submarines, and he eventually, as he got older, he had an apartment that he turned into the whole Nautilus interior and built with rivets and pipes and all that stuff. And Tom was, you know, again, he did a lot of special effects work and model building for a lot of movies in Hollywood. And he made a series of 30-inch long Nautilus submarines, which he handed out to people. He gave me one, and it was really great. So what happened is that we decided to build the Nautilus, and what we were going to do is build the exterior, obviously in Paris, but the interior was going to be built at our facilities in North Hollywood here, and it was going to be built up on a raised platform. We're going to build the entire 120-foot long ship. And it was all going to be dismantled and sent to Fair. It was going to be completely finished, art directed, interior finishes painted. We did the whole thing, you know, and it was really quite amazing. So we decided to do it, and really I was trying to figure out how to actually do the squid scene, you know, the scene in the salon, and you know, we just didn't have the technology to do video then, and I kind of regretted not. I mean, we should have pushed it, but we didn't. And it was a really super tight budget. It was like $15 million to do the entire thing. But the one thing I did want to do is make sure that you to at least create the impression that you were going into the submarine. So as I said, transitions from one thing to the next are really important. So, you know, built the lighthouse, and you have the circular staircase that winds you down, round. And then it's just a mirror of where the real box is. The box is over behind the scenes. But then had you come back out through the to the bow, I guess, and that's what it would have been. And then, you know, you walked out. And so you kind of, people, whether they got the connection or not, people really kind of appreciate the idea that you made an effort, done, not like, well, you know, here's a door that you walk in and here you're a submarine. It just doesn't work that way. The other thing that I did is that, you know, I also learned long ago a lesson on the Living Seas Pavilion. We developed a hydrolator, which is a fake elevator. And the fact is, you transition from the outside to the inside. This elevator took you down to the depths of the ocean, which, you know, it just moved half an inch, but it was a special effect. And again, whether it's effective or not, I think people do appreciate the fact that you actually have gone ahead and tried to create a special effect that way. So we built the Nautilus, and it's beautiful. I mean, it was beautiful. It's been damaged a couple of times by people who have broken in and smashed things up, which is sad. But it took Tom. I took Tom, and I said, Tom, because he's a world-class expert on the Nautilus, and he was a friend of Harper Goff. Harper Goff was the original designer for the Nautilus submarine, and Harper Goff was at Imagineering when I first started too. anyway, so he said, all right, here's what I would do, the best of. So we had Nemo's cabin, the navigation room. I loved that scene where the divers would go down the dive chamber and out into the ocean, and the Grand Salon, we had did all that. And so, I mean, it was really great to do. The one kind of interesting experience I had was one night I got a call. It was late at night, and I got this call like, well, can you go? The Nautilus was in the process of being built, and it was being installed, and so there was the construction fence was all around that, plus a construction fence around Space Mountain. So I went out there, and so I see Jeffrey Katzenberg come walking up. And the park is closed; it's all dark at night. And so I had the key to unlock and go in, and with him he had Michael Douglas with him, the actor Michael Douglas. And so I open the gate, and we go in, and there's the Nautilus sitting there. Michael Douglas goes, "Oh my God, like the Nautilus." He says, "I remember my dad was filming 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea at the studio." It was such a memory. It was such a great memory. It's like fantastic. I go, "Oh, well, that's nice. It's really nice." I said to him, "By the way, Michael, I met your father long ago, and we were working on about the same time. I mean, about the same where we were. We were still just finishing the Living Seas Pavilion, and Kirk Douglas was on the Epcot property. So they had him come over, and so we took Kirk Douglas, and I walked him through the queue line, and we came to the queue line was filled with a bunch of ancient undersea artifacts, and there was a Tom Sherman built 10-foot long Nautilus submarine, and it had a poster of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So Kirk stops, immediately looks at this thing. And he's like, "Oh my God, I love that movie." He's like, "God, I wish I had a poster." I go, "Let me have your address. I'll send you a poster." So I wrapped it up and sent it to him, gave me his address. And I got a really, really, really nice letter from him. So I said to Michael Douglas, I said, "Yeah, I met your father." I said, "I met your father. He actually sent me a really nice letter." And he goes, "Oh, that's what my dad does. He sends letters to people. He loves to send these letters to people." And he says, "Well, what you should do is you should invite him to the opening." So I was like, "All right, I will do so." So I went back and I wrote this letter to Kirk Douglas because I had his address. And I said, "Hey, would love to have you come to the opening." I didn't ask anybody. I was like, "What the heck?" So he sent me, and I said, "I don't know if you remember me, but I sent you this poster." And he sends me this letter back. And I have all these things. It's so precious to me. He goes, "Oh, Tim, of course I remember you. You sent me that poster and it was really great. It's unfortunately my schedule doesn't allow it. And so I can't, but I do. The one regret I have is I should have invited him over. I should have invited him over to our North Hollywood facilities just to walk through it. It would have been really cool. And, sometimes when you look back, you're like, what does the matter with me? I was so dumb. You don't realize until you get older, like nobody gives a crap about anything anymore. Stop worrying about stuff. And I just didn't think of it. I was so busy, but yeah, it was really neat because he was, the submarine looked great. It had a big impact on the studio. It's still iconic. I still think the Nautilus submarine, and a matter of fact, I just sent out information about another Nautilus model that I'm building for Bob Ballard on his ship, the Nautilus. We're putting a Jules Verne, a 20,000 Leagues Nautilus model in it. And, people just love that. I honestly believe that the Nautilus submarine is in my top 1, 2, or 3 iconic space or, science fiction craft. It's right up there with the Millennium Falcon. And, to me, the design that Harper Goff did is unbelievably, it's really great. And to build a full-size one, outside and indoors, it was neat. So we finally so I hired Tom Sherman, and Tom Sherman literally, instead of me taking my budget for show set design, which is a whole group of people that just do drafting and all that, Tom literally did 300 napkin sketches. And when I say napkins, they're on napkins, okay? He did napkin sketches of each and every detail, and I would hand it to the guys at the shop, and I go, "You build this." And I paid him instead of our show set people. and it worked unbelievably well. I have a picture of Tony Baxter, me, and Tom in the pilot house, and then Tom died a couple of years after this opened, and but I was so glad that he was able to. He was on the deck of the Nautilus. It was a dream come true for him, and it was really quite spectacular. It was kind of fun, as you probably mentioned, as you probably can tell from me, it's like this is not only a development story and all that stuff, but it's a people story, and stories about people who actually develop things and create things and love the same things you guys love. It's just different. They might have had their hands into it, but the fact is the passion is all still there. And that's what I like about what I've done. So.
And there's a huge fan base for the Nautilus. For a walkthrough attraction, it's something that is not as common across all the Disney parks. I think in Paris, so many people love it. And even people who go in there for the first time, the illusion is so incredible. It is impossible to know where you are. You know what I mean? It took me a while. Someone one day told me, the show building is over there, and I was like,
good.
I think part of it was me not actually thinking about it, and part of it was not even it's such crazy idea, really, when you're not into the theme park designing business, that people are like, what do you mean we went inside? I'm like, well, you were, but not inside this one. And also there's this feeling that you have gone under the sea after it's just a walkthrough, but when you've walked through it and you come back on the other side, you really feel like you have gone so far. You really feel that you've been on an adventure. And I think that's the genius of this attraction. It's such a simple concept, really, technically, but it really takes you so far away, and it's just an amazing moment just walking through it.
Yeah, I love the fact that you didn't even think about it. I love that. I love the fact that you get caught up more in the environment, and not like when somebody goes, oh, well, it's kind of a reverse. It's a mirror and all that stuff. It's like, oh, really? To me, that's one of the reasons why when it comes to, I'm not the kind of person when somebody does a magic trick, like, oh, tell me how it's done. Because I don't want to know how it's done. Because I know I did a magic club in Macau, and the guy who does it, he's like a guy who does big mechanical things, and I'm like, don't tell me how you do it, but I had to know how these effects were done, and I'm always disappointed. I'm like, I just want to believe that it's like magic, like, because every time you go like, oh, and once you find how to do it, like, oh, okay, yeah, all right. I love when I don't know how they did it. How do you think they did it? I don't know. I have no idea. So here's my story on the Nautilus that I thought will go with me for the rest of my life. So I get a call from Philippe Bourguignon's office, and the submarine, I think, had been opened, but still there was, we opened it incrementally. Submarine was open. There was additional development that went on. They added we added the Nautilus. Then they wanted to add, they finished off the station in Discoveryland, and we got the money to build Space Mountain. And so it was part of a $200 million advance we got. So anyway, we had finished the Nautilus. I think it had been open, but this was late at night. It was dark. It was like, in the wintertime, it gets dark at 4:00 in Paris, but no offense. I kind of love it. It means it's open later. It's sun later in the summer. But so anyway, what Philippe had decided to do was he was in desperate need of getting Space Mountain sponsored, corporate sponsorship, and they tried. They couldn't get anybody to sponsor the pavilion. So his decision was he was going to have a very special dinner with all the existing corporate sponsors. Now, let me tell you a layer of complexity that takes place in the theme park. When Disneyland Paris opened, there were 11 corporate sponsors throughout, and they brought in something like about $250 million in corporate sponsorship. They put their name on attractions and all that. So they had 11 of them, and Discoveryland, and it's usually where the corporate sponsorships usually normally go, is they go in the Tomorrowlands. Okay, so Discoveryland had our share of it. So I think we had 7 of the corporate sponsorships, and each one has a very demanding experience. Okay, it's very, so, Renault did Visionarium, Philips did Videopolis, along with Coke, I think. BNP did Orbitron. IBM did Star Tours. Kodak was Captain EO Theater. I think that's all of them. Philips. Did I say Philips for video? Whatever, because of the big stage, whatever it was. So Philippe couldn't get anybody to sponsor Space Mountain. And he thought, oh man, this would be a big popular thing. They should be able to do it. So he couldn't get anybody. So he said, I'll get the sponsors who are currently sponsoring attractions in Discoveryland. And what we'll do is we'll end up doing kind of like this consortium of kind of a collective of sponsorships. So he says, so we're going to have this dinner, and it's going to be in the Nautilus, in the Grand Salon. I'm like, okay. So he says, you got to come. You got to come. I'm like, of course I have to come, right? So he said, at like 8 o'clock at night, meet underneath the Hyperion airship. So, I go out there, and all these people come up. These couples come up, everyone dressed in suits. It was like the head of Coca-Cola Europe, the head of Kodak, and the head of, them and their wives, right? And I don't know, Philips. It wasn't all the sponsors. It wasn't like BNP or Mattel, but it was like kind of the established ones. There might have been I don't think Renault was there, but anyway, there was a group there. So there was, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 of us, or there was either 9, 11, or 13, because I was the odd man out, right? So we're standing there, and I'm like, I have no idea what to expect here. So we're just standing there. Typical. The one thing about that I will say about Philippe is that these guys all have they may be business guys, but they all have kind of a really wonderful kind of sense of theater to them. So I'm standing there, and so I see suddenly from the lighthouse, I see like 6 or 8 what appear to be, French sailors. They have the horizontal stripe, big broad striped sweaters, and I think they're carrying some kind of torches, and they're walking and step, and they come walking up to us. And Discoveryland, it's all empty. It's black. I mean, some of the lights are on, but so please come with us. So we go on this thing. I'm thinking, this is so far. You had me at sailors, right? I'm there, right? So we go up and we walk down the circular staircase, and we come into the Grand Salon. And so these guys, they're gone. So the door closes behind. And so we're all kind of waiting, and you see this in the middle of the salon is this beautiful table with all of these. I mean, they had these, and I can't quite explain it, but it looked like coral, but it was some kind of I don't know, something, I don't know what it was. But anyway, it was just beautifully done, beautifully decorated. Unbelievable how beautiful it was. So from behind the organ comes Captain Nemo. And he welcomes everyone to his undersea kingdom. And he's going to be, Philippe is there. And, so he's like, I've got this wonderful dinner. And what I had done is I left the iris window open. And there is a window, there is water there in that window, but the squid was pushed back. So there's lighting effect in that room. So you just saw, the lighting effect there. So Captain Nemo comes out, welcomes us to his kingdom, and everything you're going to have in this dinner tonight is from the oceans, from the seas. It's created in his farms, et cetera, et cetera. The whole story is beautifully told. And then he disappears, and so now it becomes, we had this other. I forget who else was there, but Philippe kind of organized this whole dinner, and it was so amazing. I mean, I have been trying to do a real honest to God underwater restaurant, a real one. Now I did the one, the Coral Reef in Living Seas Pavilion, but that's kind of like you're on the side of the tank. This one, you really, with that room and the lighting, manipulated all the lights and all that stuff. This dinner was unbelievable. And I was like, I have every project I've been on since I've been trying to do an underwater restaurant. And I think we should still do it for Disneyland Paris. I'm coming up with all these ideas because we're having this conversation here. If I'm sitting there thinking, why can't we just do an underwater restaurant? Yeah, I think we should do that.
Well, they're building a lake next door, so maybe.
Next door? Oh, where? Near Discoveryland?
No, I mean next door in the other park.
Oh yeah, that's too far to walk. Anyway, so they kind of did this whole lovely dinner. These people were fantastic and all that. I don't know really who these people were. I'd never met them, but they were really nice. And Philippe had made his pitch to get, see if anybody wanted to sponsor this pavilion, but I don't think obviously no one bid on it, but I will say that I'm sorry for that trip down memory lane, but it was really, truly spectacular. I mean, that's something that, you could probably charge somebody $500 a night, for dinner. It was that well done. It was truly remarkable. And that's what those guys did. Again, I go back to, I don't know if they do that kind of thing anymore, but, they really kind of, even the management there was kind of really big on theatrical stuff. So yeah. So the Nautilus was great.
I don't know.
I think all of us were right.
I don't know if Patrick, you remember I told you one of my ideas was to have a birthday party dinner in the Nautilus. I've been saying that for years.
And if you need an endorsement, I'm all for it.
Well, maybe you can come and have dinner in the Nautilus again.
Listen, I'll be there if I can get
out. If I do rent out the ship, I will definitely invite you.
That would be awesome. I don't know. I just loved that. What I really liked about the Nautilus when we were building it and finishing it, and it actually kind of all came together pretty quickly because it all had been finished in California here. But it's as close to building a real movie set as you could. Is we have, a lot of times theme parks are different sizes and all, but that was really scaled for, more of a movie kind of set. And so the lighting and special effects and the sound and, the chains and all that background sound and music is all part of, everything that you do and you have to sign off on, but it just, once it all comes together, you look at sets and you're like, okay, set looks beautiful, nicely painted. It's great. That's great. Then they add sound and they put water in it. We had real water in the chamber and, it was great. I would have loved to, I had a whole other ending that I wanted to do there. I actually had a whole other story that I wanted to do where once you got into the engine room, suddenly something hits the side of the ship and the whole room starts to buckle. That's what I really wanted to do. Like we got a baby and mom's coming after it and it would scare the hell out of you.
I think the whole thing is breathtaking. And it actually has, I'm kind of weird in that it's got, I think my favorite detail in any Disney park, and it's right at the end actually. I love the little turnstile, like the little paddle turnstile as you leave. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you wish the Nautilus could have been a full-fledged attraction with a ride?
Do you think I would want a walkthrough or a full-blown attraction?
Yeah, that's of course.
What happens is what happened was literally, I'll go back and say Michael Eisner and Frank Wells were really concerned that the park was going to be so popular they needed more capacity. I briefly mentioned this about 10 minutes ago, and they said, well, we'll give you $215 million, okay, to do that. So what they did is that they said, all right, $200 million, something like that, something like $200 million. I don't remember exactly what it was. But anyway, so what I did is I got, as I said, they wanted to have a stop at Discoveryland Station because there was not a stop there on opening day. That was number one. Number two, we were going to do the Nautilus. And number three was paying for the extended part of Star Tours. And the fourth part of that was Space Mountain. Now I got most of the money. The rest of the money that was available, most of that, or all of the other part that was there. I think Tom Morris expanded Fantasyland with Casey Jr. And then there was a Ferris wheel windmill kind of thing that he did, but I got most of that, or I didn't get, the land got it. And so we were able to build it. So you have $15 million or 12 or $15 million to build the Nautilus. And, you know, so yeah, that's what we want to do. Because I guess maybe, you know, you go back to those original Discovery Mountain renderings. I always had the Nautilus sitting right in that lagoon inside Discovery Mountain. So there was always, I think, I don't know, no one actually articulates this, but there was always a connection between the Space Mountain and Jules Verne Cannon and all that with the submarine ride in front. And the sub was, you know, it's a Disney thing and it's a Jules Verne thing, you know. So like you kind of go with it. And to compose it, you know, like I look at everything as a Kodak picture spot. So, you know, when you do here's the Canon in the foreground, here's the Nautilus. So it's a picture spot. Yeah, let's do it. And that's generally how things started like that, because it wasn't started as an attraction. It was going to be a walkthrough. So it's like, I think walkthroughs are a bit passive. That's why I wish, but you know, you have to work to your budget. You know, it doesn't do anybody any good as a designer if you go, oh, you know, they go, we want to build something. Okay, we want to build, we use a very specific example. We want to build, you know, we're going to build a Nautilus submarine and we're going to do a walkthrough. And you go, great. And then you start designing a whole attraction and your budget's $15 million. If you come and do a presentation where you've got a whole attraction and it's now 75, it's a really short meeting. Like, what is this? You know, so I think of this, you know, I'm currently right now in that part of my house, our kitchen's being completely redone. So if I go to the contractor and I go, this is my budget, and he comes back and go, oh, I can make your kitchen twice as big and all this, and it'll cost you, you know, $1 million. Like, yeah, but I don't have $1 million. I mean, it's like related to yourself, and these are businesses, you know. Disney has, so the key is, how do you make it as great as possible and stay on budget? And I, you know, was able to keep things on budget. It's a business, you know. It's this dynamic of creativity and business and making it work and being successful. You know, the worst thing you could do is, you know, get stuff that people don't like. And I've worked on projects like that.
And I think you did the best of it, because I can't think of a better walkthrough, really, to be honest, in terms of the experience and everything, the details, everything. It just really works.
Even, well, you know. I mean, after all these years, I'm actually very thrilled that you said what you said and said that you guys still like it. And I mean, you like it, and that, you know, it's an experience that you remember and you can have, and you didn't know where it was, but you know, there are all those little tricks to it, because a lot of times you create something and you're like, how's anybody going to react to this? You know, so you don't know, you really don't know. It's amazing when people just like, you know, like I said, when taking that hydrolator, the first time I went in with guests on the hydrolator at the Seas Pavilion, I thought, I was just sitting like looking around going, oh, people are going to start laughing and they're going to roll their eyes. And people are standing there going, you know, the walls are rolling around you. And, you know, it looks like you're descending down. I learned how, you know, the way you want to create movement is always in your peripheral vision. It's not in front, it's here. You know, have you ever been in your car and a bus is next to you and it starts moving and you hit the brake? Like, my car's moving. No, because it's here. You see movement here. So we did that triangular thing where the rolling rock walls were on the sides. So people are like, the doors opened up and we went out. You know? And I'm like, they bought it? But they don't. People have a tendency to accept it. They just like, because it's done well. Okay, it's done well. And so you're like, oh, they just accept it.
Yeah, and I think there's a testament to that, in that even though, I'm sure everyone here can back me up, even though you know the illusion and where the show building is, every single time I go under there, I totally buy that I'm in that submarine. I feel like I've just walked out of it.
Oh, absolutely. I forget. I don't think about it.
The right answer to that, which is what you just said, I don't even think about it. I just like, oh, it was really cool. I really liked it. That is that, you know, like, again, it's that magic trick, how they do it and how they did it. And it's like, yeah. And because I said, well, why don't I just flip this? We couldn't put it underneath. There was no way.
Right.
You couldn't get people to evacuate. You couldn't. I mean, there's a million safety issues. But it was like, oh, I never thought of it. It was just like, oh, I remember that. It was really great. I really enjoyed it, and I liked that exit, those paddles on the exit turnstiles. I mean, when you say that, it's like, yeah, that's great. It's all about creating the illusion, and it's not that you're buying it hook, line, and sinker. What you're doing is that you're accepting it as an experience that you went through, and you went, yeah, okay, this is great. I love it.
Jeff, should we talk quickly about Star Tours?
By the way, I have a question. I have a question because I haven't seen it, because I don't understand it. For those who've been to Disneyland Paris recently, when I put the X-Wing in at this angle that you walked underneath. So, I mean, I did that because, again, in that spirit of, let's build Skull Rocks and pirate ships and Hyperion airships and Nautilus submarines. So I wanted to have this X-Wing, because I like people like to go through stuff. So now I've seen it's been moved to the top of the Star Trader shop. I mean, does anybody look at it?
Yeah, it kind of just is chilling there, like, because right under it is like the meet and greet for like usually like Darth Vader and stuff. But I usually take most note of it when I'm doing like the railroad, because it's right there, and sometimes like you see little kids trying to run to it, and the cast members always have to be like, no, like don't go near there. Yeah.
So you're happy the way it works? It works out okay?
I mean, I personally like it. I don't know what everyone
So
else
I think
because I've only, the first time I went to Paris was 2 years ago, so I've never seen all of the original stuff that quite a few fans have. So this is all like my like. They were
your reality.
Original park, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
of course.
I think there was a whole redesign of the area, and so the Star Tours exits, post show that had arcade games is now Star Traders, a much bigger Star Wars theme shop, and so Star Traders, which was what now is Starport, is now a meet and greet, and I think they use the X-Wing to sort of justify the name of Starport, as in like this is now a landing strip. Before there was the antenna on top.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I think you've sort of put into words how I've been feeling about that, actually, because I honestly don't know to sit up there. It's been sort of years since I've kind of gone, oh yeah, there's the X-Wing up there. Whereas before it was always something that's, I'm underneath it, or I've got to take a picture of it because it's up there.
Where was it originally?
It was sort of
beginning
by the entrance,
beginning of the queue line, and it was. What happened is it had a post that came inside the body, so it looked like you didn't see it. I mean, I probably should have built it so it looked like it was being serviced, right? But it was the wings were like that. I don't know. There's
like an angle, like so you.
It was an angle. It was banked like this, and you right underneath it. You could probably reach up and touch it.
Okay.
It's that close.
Yeah,
and again, it was like I did it just because I just like the way that I just like the proximity of it. I don't like things so far away, So anyway, but then I looked at it and then I saw this thing on top, and I went like, did they build another one? They go, oh no, they just moved that one. I was like, oh, okay. And I've not been there. I don't know the context of it all, so I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't work.
I think to be honest, it was more a change for the sake of changing, I feel. And we talked before about how Orbitron, you see it from the hub, and it sort of like pulls you into Discoveryland. I feel like the X-Wing, where it was before, you could see it as soon as you pass Orbitron, or even if you're on the side of Orbitron, you could see it in the back, and it would kind of tell you like what's going on over there. Like, is there a ship taking off? Like, what do I get to go near it? Do I get and now that it's on top of Star Traders, you don't really see it from many angles of the main part of the land. Yeah. So I think that's kind of the change. They built this entrance that looks like the Star Tours logo, which has become more recognizable over the years. So it is still some sort of a beacon, but I think it doesn't quite excite people as much as the ship.
Yeah, I mean, if we haven't had the budget, I mean, I would have loved to have like what they did at the studio tour in Florida. They have the big act walkers, the big walking things. I mean, I don't know. I just like that stuff. Anybody can do signs, but anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm just.
And they did all this roughly at the same time so they did Hyperspace Mountain, Star Tours, The Adventures Continue, and the shop remodeling and the meet and greet. That all sort of happened, I think, within 2 or 3 months of each other, actually, something like that.
Is that when they added the other statue, like from WALL-E as well?
No, the WALL-E thing's been there for,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe even up 10 or so years now. It's just sort of been plonked there.
Yeah.
It doesn't make that much sense.
I think that's part of that branding thing that they want to do.
Yeah.
I'm not part of that, so I don't know.
I don't know if we're allowed to ask, but can we ask your opinion on, you kind of touched on it earlier, and I know we're coming away from Star Tours, and I'm really sorry, but just about like the Hyperspace Mountain overlay on Space Mountain, because it's a very heated subject of discussion within the fan community, because the original vision from De la Terre à la Lune and the kind of the soul of the attraction the exterior and the interior not really working together is like a real hot topic, and I was just wondering if we could ask your opinion on that.
Well, Mission 2 I never saw it. I can only imagine that there are people at Imagineering cursing the fact that the mountain looks the way it does, because it doesn't fit into the normal kind of white Space Mountain, so I never saw it. And you know what? I've not even been able to get to see the Star Hyperspace Mountain. Every time I go to Disneyland, it's like a 2-hour wait, and I just can't do that anymore. I would love to see it. I would love to see it, but I don't have the time to. I really don't have time to go. So
it's just too bad that the story doesn't match the show building anymore, because we still have this big canon.
It doesn't match, and but again, I think that goes to the fact of that. I mean, who can anticipate that? The only thing I don't want them to do, which will make me really unhappy, is if they try and repaint that building so it's white or some ridiculous thing like that. I don't know. I just. The one thing that most people don't know, they've not ridden on it, and the ride was, it was super good when it was open. Now it's, those rides don't get better as they get older; they get kind of rougher. Like I said, I just think that those new contemporary branding themes just don't match with the rest of the building. But who would have known that? Nobody would have ever known that. I mean, who knows what we're going to do?
Yeah, I remember being super confused the first time, because again, never saw the original, still upset about that. But it's just like, it was like, you see, like you go in and it's like suddenly Star Wars, and you're like, okay, what was the whole Jules Verne steampunk thing? It very much brings you out of it, like, because I feel like what you were saying before with the whole, like, you shouldn't question like the stuff, you should just experience it, and that definitely takes you out of it, because you're like, wait, I thought this was like Jules Verne, like there's the Nautilus is out there, why is R2-D2 talking to me, or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a few things sort of hovering around there as well. So even to add to the confusion a little bit, you've still got the waiting rooms still sort of are as they were, with maybe a couple of extra Star Wars banners instead just thrown in there. But recently they've changed the trains, and what they did is they took the original design, and the new design trains are very sort of De la Terre à la Lune. It's very inspired by that. And then again, you don't get the matching experience with the actual ride at the end.
Well, the thing that's interesting about that is, I mean, with the exception of the cannon, which is kind of very Victorian-y kind of in a way, all the other elements, if you look at the mountain itself, and if you look at the vehicles, if you look at the kind of design vocabulary of Star Wars is all very mechanical. It's not that far off. Maybe the colors are different, but I mean, I'm like I said, I'm sure they're, damn him, why did he design this way? All I can say is, what I was going to say before, I remember what it was. When I talk about this, other people who have not been on it, the one thing that, when people, what they don't really understand, what they don't realize until I tell them this, Space Mountain in Paris is twice as fast as any of the other Space Mountains. Right? It gets up to 55 miles an hour. And the other ones, like Space Mountain in Disneyland, doesn't go more than 27. And it's not necessarily you feel like a lack of speed, but there is, it's because of its compression and it's the turning and dynamics, because they had to compress all that with the load and unload in the building. So, I had a bit of a challenge myself when I was in Hong Kong, when I was in charge of doing Tomorrowland in Hong Kong. I had to build the same Space Mountain that they had in Disneyland in 1977. And I was like, why? But that was the era that we were in. It was they just wanted to duplicate it and build an attraction, not, it wasn't the creative driver that it needed to be. And that's kind of tough to do. It's kind of like, you had a bicycle and now you invented the airplane. So, but we're going to go back and let's go back and build the bicycle again. I'm like, no.
It's funny because
there is one good thing. The catapult still makes a good hyperspace jump.
It does?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good. After Paris, you did a lot of work. You've already discussed it a little bit in California on Paradise Pier. I think for me, one of my most burning questions about Paradise Pier is about the swinging gondolas. I love the swinging gondolas in a kind of, they're absolutely terrifying kind of way. How did you come up with the idea of doing those?
Well, what we did is that when you launch into a project, you end up going on, so one of the things I was doing was the California amusement park ride side of it, the whole thing. And so, did like a nationwide survey of all these parks. We went to Coney Island, went to Kennywood and Pittsburgh. And we went to all these parks all around the country. And when you know the history of seaside amusement parks, they were kind of a main element of the of the growth of California in the beginning of the 20th century. There were a total of 20 amusement parks there. There's only like 2 or 3 now, but it was a big deal. So, you do a lot of research. And so the Wonder Wheel in Coney Island has those kind of, it's the only one I've been on, that secondary track. So my challenge when we were doing Paradise Pier is that how do we do something that's really extraordinary? So when it came to the coaster, obviously, I wanted to run, it's a different catapult launch system, but I wanted to run the length of the boardwalk and then, you go all the way through that ride. So we were doing a Ferris wheel. Everybody's been on a Ferris wheel. So we got Intamin to build the swinging gondola ones, but a little to my disappointment, to be honest with you, is that they use the same kind of bogies on those vehicles that they use on roller coasters. So what happens is that, and the Wonder Wheel in Coney Island is basically like casters on a chair. It's like they're kind of cheese ball. There's a channel and there's a chair, so it kind of goes done. Okay, and it's kind of thrilling. I went, oh my God, if we're gonna do something, we got to find somebody who can build us one of these. That's what I want. So we finally get the thing, and I'm like telling people it's going to be really unique and all that. And so then I get on it the first time, and it's on that kind of ellipsoid kidney-shaped kind of track, and the ride sling, and it goes like this, 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 and it goes like this. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to drive people nuts. So I'm like, is there any way to dampen this? And then they really couldn't. I thought they could, because I think when it swings out, it's pretty neat. And then it kind of does that, and then it settles down and then goes down and then kind of does it again. But, sometimes people are not used to that kind of animation or, kind of kinetics. And so, but it's different, and it's a visual thing to look at. And like, you want to maximize everything you're doing when you're doing something that's normal,
It is such an unsettling feeling because I didn't realize what they were doing when I got on the first time. And I was really almost regretting getting on. I was
See,
like,
I
okay.
did, and I still felt absolutely terrified.
I was sort of
It's
confused.
it's categorically the most terrifying experience I've had in a theme park / Disney park
Literally
ever.
have like California Screaming right there. Nope, scariest
It-
thing.
no, it's like the swinging,
What?
and I was like, it's never again. I can't do it again. I'll take the like non-singing ones, thank you, because
On the wheel? You mean the wheel? Oh. Well, how about Screaming? That's a pretty good coaster.
Oh
it's
yeah,
great.
that's
Love that,
fantastic.
yeah.
Love it. But I would
it's
take
great.
California Screaming a million times before I get in that swinging gondola again, because I was like petrified.
Oh, I'll always do the swinging gondola as well.
And I
I mean,
think-
as long as you don't get sick or anything, or as long as you don't like, I mean, if you really, really hate it, then I had nothing to do with it. If you love it, then I'm like, oh,
I love it. I love it in a I hate it kind of way.
No, it's good.
It's
good.
more
It's
just
good.
fear.
Yeah,
fear
it's so
factor.
scary. It's so scary.
And actually, mentioning California Screaming, that was one of our questions. There's a lot of similarities with Space Mountain if you really think about it. The launch, which is sort of like more of a flat, and so what was the idea for that attraction? Was it just to take the classic roller coaster, boardwalk roller coaster, but make it more exciting, make it different?
to make it more of a Disney kind of coaster, to make it definitely more Disney. So let me tell you the story and how we do this, because you might be interested in this. The ride engineer for that attraction is a guy by the name of Pat Doyle. And Pat is a young guy. And so what we did is, remember how I said, we would like to write a story about something? Well, we actually wrote a script for that ride. We read, what you normally do, and when you do coasters, high-speed coasters like that, what you have to do, the best rides, in my opinion, like that, it's kind of like a theatrical play. Okay, you have Act 1 and you have Act 2. And between Act 1 and Act 2, you have a lift that prepares you for the big final Act 3. Okay, and that's what you do. It allows, basically, you try to calculate what the dynamics on a body is going to be. You want people to be excited. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of body dynamics that people can accept, and there's some that they don't like. I hate teacups. I can't spin. I don't like it. In my search for good rides, I went on a couple of rides that just drove me nuts. You can go to Viper at Magic Mountain, and you can go through 7 loops in 45 seconds. And I had a headache for the rest of the day. Okay. Now, as you get older, and you get as old as I am, I can't do this stuff at all anymore. But when you just can't handle, the inner ear, and it kind of makes you all kind of wacky. And then I also went on another ride. There was an aero coaster at Circus in Las Vegas, where it literally went through, and it was a really tight loop. It was more of an ellipsoid type loop. And I went through that loop, and I came out of that loop, and I was seeing stars. And that's because the dynamics of it are so severe, the blood runs out of your brain. And what I did is that I went, is that really what happened? So I got back in the line and I wrote it again. And sure enough, it did it again. So this prepares me for what I'm going to do. So I sit down with Pat Doyle and we say, here's what I want. We're going to do a linear induction system. It's going to fire us down the length of the boardwalk, because again, I want the guests on board to be part of the show. So people hang on that edge, and you hear that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and people get launched, up to 24, 20, or whatever it is, 50 miles, 60 miles an hour in about 4 seconds. So when you do that, people, when you accelerate in a car, it's positive G's on you, and you can take that. It's like when you get light, that's severely light, that's where people get upset and bothers your inner ear. So fire this thing down the length of the boardwalk, go up the hill, and then it comes down, and it goes down a whole that whole bank turn. Okay, so you physically can calm down, and then you kind of get ready to go. And I don't know all the exact sequences, but we wrote these sequences. So I said, then I said, all right, we're going to do this, and then you have every moment. Every episode that you have a moment of reduced stress, and then it kind of drops down again, and then you have another episode of calming you down and banking on those turns. The ride's 6,000 feet long. It's over a mile. It's over a mile in length. And so, we kind of plan each one. And I said, all right, it's all intimate. When, what they do is that when they do their ride systems, they basically have standard ride track systems. It's a little bit like, snapping track together on a little railroad, toy railroad. It's like they'll take this section, put it with that section. Go, I need a bank like this because that's good. It's good for people. It makes them feel happy. So when it comes to the loop, I need the least stress loop you have in your catalog. Now, that doesn't mean it's a circle, but there are certain dynamics that they know equations on. So I know that it's a long run. You can see it coming, and then you go into it, smooth, and you're out, okay? So then you come back around, go down the other side, and now, boom, now we're gonna go up the lift. And you're going up the lift, and you can calm down, you relax a little bit, little view looking at Disneyland, and then it drops off, and it's now coming down to the ending. And then those turns at the end, you come down and around, and we make another last pass down the length of the boardwalk. Now, when I was a kid, we used to go out to the desert out here, and there's a road called the Pear Blossom Highway. And because it's a desert, the road does this. What happens is that it stays above the desert and then it has to drop down, because when you have desert flood storms coming out of the mountain, they go down these gullies and they don't want to go across. So they dip the road down. So my dad would get on the car and he would drive out there, and he did it by accident. Then forever after we'd go there, I go, speed up. So he goes, whoop, whoop, and you do this, and you get light, you come back, and you light up, and it's like this whole kind of undulating highway. So I said, Pat, at the end of this ride, as people are coming back into the final, you have those big turns at the end, and what you're doing is you're scrubbing off speed. You're coming out of that. So this is like looping like that. Well, what happens is it gets light, and it's fun. It's not like, it's not like free fall where you're just literally falling. It's terrifying. You're kind of getting light, and people giggle and laugh and all that stuff. So then you come in, so you do that, and then you go scrub off the speed and then slam on the brakes as you come into the brake zone, right? So the point happens to be that what you do is there's a lot of engineering that's involved. There's also a lot of your own personal taste for what you think is a ride. And as I said, it's not the fastest, it's not the tallest, it's not not any of those things. But what it is, this is in my opinion, what our goal was to develop and design the most perfect Disney coaster you could get. Not a Space Mountain thing, not a Big Thunder thing, what it is. So what I had to do is convince everybody, we're not gonna do a wooden coaster. And I don't like the way Universal has those big kind of pylons with a ride on it, and it says this is the green monster coaster. So what we did is that I said, we're going to build what appears to be a wooden coaster, but it's all going to be steel. It has 300% overbuilt in terms of its structural integrity. So it's not going anywhere, which is good, because you don't want these things. Wooden coasters, there is not a wooden coaster in the world that survived the workload that Disney puts through attractions. So what it also did is, because that coaster is 1,000 feet across, by putting all that structure in there, all that white kind of fake, looks like a wood coaster, because that's, it's meant to be nostalgic. It also blocks out all of Anaheim behind it. You don't see the Anaheim Convention Center. And the problem with Disney's California Adventure, not the problem, but the situation with Disney's California Adventure, is it doesn't have a berm around it. So how do we hide everything? Okay, so I pushed the coaster to the back, as far back as you can get, so you don't see it. So you see the white coaster. And then I had originally designed every joint has a star on it, as we were going to put a whole star field or whole lighting effect on it, and also put the lagoon in front, because I needed energy there. You just can't have, I needed to have that land. I needed that. So that's what we did. So, so the coaster is, there's a reason why everything is that way. And I will tell you that the most, again, a very gratifying thing is that so many people that I knew at Imagineering would come to me and say, Oh, I got to tell you, we were down at DCA, and my 9-year-old daughter is terrified of thrill rides, but I convinced her Screamin' would be a good coaster, and it's her favorite ride. And all we did is ride Screamin' over and over again. I go, yeah, well, that's what we want. It's a Disney kind of a coaster, so that you end up, not having to be exhausted or having a headache for the rest of the day. That's not what you really want to do. So that's one of the reasons why I remember the first meeting we had presenting it to upper management. It was Michael Eisner and Michael Ovitz, if you can imagine. So I did this whole elevation. It was basically all the attractions were there with the coaster behind it. And there was this one, the loop went through with Mickey's ears on it. And they were like, yeah, okay, we're done. Done, wrap it, And so every night on the local news, ABC channel here, they would show Paradise Pier with the mouse, the coaster going through the mouse head, Now, going back to what we talked about, the X-Wing, they made changes. They took the ears off it, and please don't ask me why, because I have no idea why they would do things like that. But that's my opinion.
And also, the coaster became really iconic because California Adventure didn't really have that many icons to begin with, and so it became really just a symbol of the park, and also it became such an amazing backdrop for World of Color, which came years later, and now it's sort of like the whole it's part of the show, so it has like this whole new purpose since they did World of Color.
As it should be. I mean, I completely, it was going to be a backdrop. We always thought it would be a backdrop. And so then people come in and make it a backdrop, and they're like, well, you didn't make it as a backdrop. We had no money for that park. Okay. I mean, I'll just tell you that. I mean, I'm not even going to talk about it, but I'm just going to tell you the budget wasn't there to do that park right. But anyway, I mean, I think this is great. I'm glad. I'm always happy to talk. And I'm hoping, I mean, again, I can't stress enough that, I probably get more high profile exposure, but there's a lot of people that take to do this stuff. And it's truly, you develop a family. I mean, on all the attractions I did, all the attractions, it's like you gather together a team and you're like a family, because sometimes you're closer than they are all the time. And then it's gone. And then you go to this next team, and then and because when I run a team, I have a very specific set of rules that, basically have to have a working studio space. I will have, like we did DCA, because my background is an artist. I mean, I learned all this, and I'm a designer, and I draw all the time and all that stuff. So I approach it as that way. Like I said, some producers and directors are more writer kind of people. But anyway, so I request that I need like 50 or 60 feet of wall space so we can pin everything up. And then when the projects get running and people start working, then I insist that at 8:30 it can be anywhere from 5 to 25 people, or maybe let's say 20 people on their immediate team, and they sit around the table at 8:30 in the morning, and basically it's a huddle. And the intent of the meeting is not to have the meeting, but what happens is that you have to tell people what's going on, what the milestones are, how's everybody doing, and if some conversation takes longer, then they have a separate meeting. But the way you keep in control of things is that you have to make sure that everybody is kind of wrangled around, and this table is wrapped, the walls are wrapped around this table. And if somebody has a better idea, it's like, okay, let's take that drawing down and put your drawing up. That's better, and let's just do that. And it's a way by keeping control that you can keep control of cost and budget and story, theme, and all that. And on top of that, when you have that kind of situation, when you get a call saying, Michael Eisner is bringing the board of directors over here and they want to go on a tour, and I'm always the first one to call. They're like, here it is. And it looks like, wow, this is right. And it looks great. It looks great. All this artwork is just great. It's pinned up and big drawings and, some sketches and some little tiny things or something kind of crazy. And, that's the way it should be. If the process of creating something isn't fun, then the end product won't be. And that's the way you have to look at it.
So on that note, Tim, thank you so much for being on the show.
It was great. It was great. Always wonderful talking to you guys. It's great. I hope that keep the spirit. Disneyland Paris is my favorite. So I mean, I mean it. I'm very serious about that. So
And we have a very there's a very big Disneyland Paris fan community, and I think I talk for everyone to say, we're so grateful that you created such a wonderful park and so much attention, so many details. It's really a work of art, and Discoveryland is unique, and really we're very grateful for everything you created. So thank you for all your work.
That's great. One last thing. I don't think, can you see behind me where the skeleton is?
Vaguely,
Yes.
yeah.
It's like a pirate.
Looks like
Yeah, he's got a pirate head. It's a skeleton, right? Okay, so when we did the marquee for Discovery Mountain. So when Eisner came in and changed it to back to Space Mountain, so the sign was a big D, and then the rest of it was Discovery, right? So they just took the D and the Discovery down, and they put space, a big S with Space Mountain, just bolted it right to the marquee, So the big D is sitting right over there. The team gave it to me. And so it's the big original D from the marquee. It's about, you can't see it. It's hidden behind there. But, one of these days I'll light it up. It's got flash glass and it's kind of amazing. People all think when they see those DMs on the mountain, it has something to do with me, and it has nothing to do with me. But, that was a traumatic thing, changing it from Discovery Mountain to Space Mountain.
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about that. Yeah.
Well, I'll give it to you in 2 seconds. I'm standing in a walkway. I'm walking with Eisner, and we're walking between Videopolis and where the mountain is, coming from Star Tours. And the management of Disneyland Paris goes, Michael, this mountain's great, but we don't have a Discovery Mountain brand. We have a Space Mountain brand. So I'm like, uh-oh. So Michael goes, okay, fine. It's now Space Mountain. So now you have no reason not to make this thing a huge success and make money, and that's what we need to do. And I'm like, what? What did you just do to me?
Too late.
Done.
It's done.
Yeah.
Done. I got the D out of it. That's what I got out of it. Anyway.
Which is pretty awesome. But I mean, yeah, I understand, like, when you worked on this whole concept and all of a sudden they changed the whole name.
Oh yeah, well, because he's like, okay, now you have no excuse. I mean, it's like I'm used as a foil for that. But I mean, it's not a personal thing. It's just that, they were, it was, I said, it was a tough time economically, and he wasn't going to put up with anybody's, because if it didn't work, if this Space Mountain attraction or Discovery Mountain, whatever you call it, if it didn't work, they would have said, oh, well, we couldn't market it because we're everybody knows Space Mountain. We don't know Discovery Mountain. So nobody came.
Yeah.
You could have called it Brick Mountain, and then people would have come, because it's the attraction. It's how it all worked together. So,
it's always a fight with marketing,
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I understand it. Just sometimes, but the reason I wanted it to be Discoveryland, Discovery Mountain, even though it was not, it was not the big original one. It is a Space Mountain. There's Space Mountains and there's Discovery Mountain. Okay, and it's so different than any of the other ones.
Of course.
And the impact it had on the park was so different that I thought it needed its own name, but lost that battle, and that's ancient history. So, anyway.
Thankfully, we still have the beautiful attraction.
All right, guys. Nice talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.